What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to basically do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down and take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching story and combine them together into one big video. Now, today's full story video is going to be about The Thing. You see, back in 1983, Marvel gave The Thing his own solo book. As a matter of fact, it ran for about 30 issues, but in the middle of that run, he had a 12-part story arc called the Space Ranger story arc, where it took place right after the original Secret Wars, where you had been going to decide to go ahead and stay on Battleworld. And the reason why? Because he had gained the ability to turn back into a regular human. But for Ben, he had no idea why, and he wanted to understand why Battleworld gave him that ability in the first place. But at the same time, he wanted to enjoy the idea of finally looking normal. But also, he has to go through a lot of different trials while being on Battleworld, while the rest of the heroes had returned back to Earth. And so here is today's full story video. I do hope you enjoy. What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to do something a tad bit different here on my channel. So a while back, I received a super thing. And as y'all know, a super thing is where you pay money to have your comments shown to me, but it's also a way to say, hey, we appreciate your work. And so I had somebody give me a super thing, and they asked me like, hey Fresh, can you cover the Thing series that took place right after Secret Wars? And I was kind of like, man, I forgot that Ben Grimm, one of my favorite characters in Marvel Comics, had actually received a series, but it actually took place before Secret Wars, and then after Secret Wars, they had a whole big storyline where Ben Grimm had the ability to actually turn back into his human form. Let me explain. So back in 1984, we had a big event called Secret Wars, and it was a huge event where you had the Beyonder being able to build up Battleworld. And Battleworld was just a patchwork of different pieces of different planets across the main Marvel universe. Now, when it came to Secret Wars, you had a group of heroes of Earth to fight against a group of villains of Earth in one big huge battle on Battleworld. Now, at the tail end of that crossover, we had learned that Ben Grimm had the ability to turn back into his regular human form. And that was a huge moment in Marvel Comics. But the problem was he could only do it on Battleworld. He could not do it anywhere else in the universe, it seemed. And so at the tail end of the big crossover, you have Ben Grimm tell the Fantastic Four that he was going to stay on Battleworld for two reasons. One, he loves the idea that now he is able to turn back into a regular human. But two, he wants to learn why he's only able to turn back into a human on Battleworld and nowhere else. What is happening on Battleworld that allows him to turn back into a human? And so for Ben Grimm, that's the whole idea of the story arc. Now, like I said, this took place in 1984. By this point, the Thing series was already hitting issue number 11. So we're not going to cover the first 10 issues for right now. We're going to focus on issue number 11 and forward when it comes to Ben Grimm now having the ability to turn back into a regular human. And so as we get into the main book, we actually pick up with Ben Grimm still on Battleworld. Now we do learn that it has been 3 days since the ending of Secret Wars. And so for Ben Grimm, he loved the idea to have the ability to turn back into a regular human, but right now we kind of see that he is beginning to become a tad bit lonely. So he does pull out a device that was given to him by Reed Richards, and this device will allow him to go back to Earth anytime he's ready to go back home. Except when he does pull out the device, it gets taken away by some kind of creature. And that creature is being controlled by some kind of small alien. And so you have this alien being able to use its flying creature to get away from Ben Grimm, but of course it now has the only way for Ben Grimm to get back to Earth. So Ben now has to follow that creature to get that device back. Now, like I said earlier, when it comes to Battle World was put together by the Beyonder, but really it's a patchwork. It's different pieces of different planets across the universe that was put together to make up Battle World. And so while you have Ben Grimm trying his best to chase down this flying creature, he's going through different kinds of terrains, different kinds of environments. And so for him, it's actually a challenge. Now, Ben Grimm is not trying to chase down this creature in his form as a thing. He wants to do it as a regular human, because for many years by this point in Marvel Comics, he was just a thing. He forgot what it felt like to be a regular human going through an actual challenge. And so he is able to follow the flying creature through different parts of Battle World, up to the point where he does arrive at some kind of desert. Now, in the middle of the desert, there's some kind of tower where the flying creature had actually flown to. And so you have Ben say, you know what? Let me go ahead, head over there and see what in the world is going on with that tower. And maybe I'll find the flying creature and get my item back. Now, for Ben Grimm, he realized that when he gets close enough to the tower, there's not any features that would allow him to actually climb up the tower to find the flying creature and its rider. But then he realized that there is a small town that was actually built around the tower. Now, when I say built, I don't mean that these small aliens were able to build their homes. Apparently, their homes were most likely grown out of some kind of organism. Either way, you have Ben realize that if he can find a bar, then most likely he'll get information about how to climb that tower. And really, for Ben, luckily, he does find a bar. Now, you do have the bartender tell Ben Grimm that his item was actually stolen from a taker. So the rider of the flying creature is known as a taker. They go around and they take things. That's really it. But here's the thing though, all the different people in this small town around the tower are different people who were victims of having their things stolen from takers over the years. They chase the takers over to this area, but then realize they can't get their stuff back because there's no way up the tower. And so they had decided to go ahead and stay here in this area to become part of the town. And so for Ben Grimm, he also learns that nobody was able or has been able to get up into the tower. And now Ben Grimm is trying his best to figure out how in the world is he going to get up there. But while you have Ben Grimm leaving the bar, he realized that he's being followed by a small little alien girl, a green alien girl, who apparently has a way up to the tower. You see, she also has her own flying creature, but unfortunately, she cannot ride the creature correctly. And so she thinks that Ben Grimm will be able to help her out because she also had an item stolen from the takers 16 years ago. Apparently, it was a wedding gift. And when that item was taken away, it brought shame to her family. And so she can't go back home until she gets that item. And so Ben Grimm does make a deal with her. Say, hey, I'll use your flying creature to get both our items back from the takers. And so you have Ben climb on top of the flying creature and begin to try to use it as a way to get to the top of the tower. Now for Ben Grimm, he is able to use the flying creature to fly towards the actual tower, except when he does, he learns the tower is actually a portal that leads into another part of Battle World. Now, once he does go through the portal, he does find the home of the takers. And so he does change into the thing and he breaks open their door to their home and say, hey, you guys stole from me earlier. I want my device back now. And the takers, they're scared of Ben Grimm and they go ahead and hand over what they had stolen. But before he leaves, he said, you also stole an item from a young girl 16 years ago. I'm going to need you to find that item and give it back to her, or we're going to have some more problems down the road. And the takers, they do what he said because they're scared of him. And you have Ben Grimm just walk away and continue to make an adventure across Battle World. Now, I want to remind you guys one more time that Battle World is like a patchwork of different pieces of planets from across the universe put together to make up Battle World. And so, while you have Ben Grimm being able to continue on across Battle World, he does arrive at a different part of Battle World where there's mountains in this area, but the mountains were clean cut on the sides to make sure that this piece of Battle World would fit perfectly with the rest of the pieces of Battle World. Now for Ben Grimm, he wants to know what's happening inside that actual place. And so he goes in the mountains. Now as he gets deeper and deeper, he realized to himself that this does kind of seem like a piece of Earth, even though it's not really a piece of Earth. Now you do have Ben Grimm being able to go deeper and deeper into the actual mountains, except when he does, he's then confronted by this great warrior riding a horse trying to kill him off. And the reason why, because he believes that Ben Grimm is working for some kind of dark wizard in the area. Now, Ben Grimm is trying his best to tell this warrior that no, I am not working for some dark wizard. I just arrived here a moment ago. Now, we are going to learn the name of this character down the road, but getting back to what's happening right now, you have this warrior tell Ben Grimm that outside the mountains, there's nothing. So this warrior truly believes his entire world takes place in the mountains, and that is it. There's nothing outside the mountains at all. And so you have been like, nah, man, like, there's many things out there. You have to travel outside the actual area. And also, I'm not working for some kind of dark wizard. But again, the guy is not listening. He continues to attack Ben Grimm. And so you have been having to change into his thing form to actually stop the warrior in his place. Now, after you have Ben Grimm being able to actually stop the warrior in his track, well, you did have the warrior kind of enter some kind of trance where he's unable to move. He's unable to speak. He's just frozen in place. And you have been trying to put him down, but then another warrior appears. But this warrior is a female, and she's very upset with Ben Grimm because she believes that Ben had just hurt the man that she apparently is with. But also, she believes that Ben is also an evil demon working for the wizard of this area. So her goal is to take him out. But again, you have been being able to stop her easily by using his powers of the thing. But after taking her down, it's now Ben saying, let me show you that I'm not someone working for the dark wizard of this area. Let me show you that I'm actually an innocent person. So you have Ben changed back into his regular human form to show her that he's not going to be any kind of trouble. Now for her, she kind of took this as, okay, you know what? It's Ben letting down his guard. And that really shows that there's no way that he's actually working for the dark wizard of this area. But then after that, she does tell us her name. Now her name is actually Tariana, and she came here with her friend Hanrock, the guy warrior, to hunt down the dark wizard of this area. But while you have the two characters talking to one another, Hanrock runs away. He goes somewhere else in the forest, and they have no idea why the man is just running away. And so you have Tariana and Ben follow him, except when they do, you then have our heroes be confronted by Dr. Doom. Now, this actually led into some problems in Marvel Comics. So let me explain. You see, when it came to Dr. Doom around this time in Marvel Comics, he was actually dead over in Fantastic Four comics. But then we had Secret Wars. In that crossover, he was alive again. And for a lot of people, it's kind of like, wait a second. If we saw him die over in Fantastic Four comics, then how in the world is he alive right now in Secret Wars? And the book kind of ended on the idea that Doom is no longer around. But here we are now, we have a giant-sized Dr. Doom trying to fight against our heroes. And the big question is right now, how is that even possible? Now, you do have our heroes trying their best to bring down Dr. Doom, but he's showing that he is a tad bit too strong. But then you have Ben being lucky to throw a tree right at the right spot to actually break Doom to few pieces. It kind of seemed like he was just a robot put together. But after the battle, you then have Ben Grimm wanting to make sure that Tariana is okay. But the problem is though, Hunrak believes that Ben Grimm is once again still working for the Dark Wizard in some kind of way. Of course, talking about Dr. Doom being the Dark Wizard. But you have been trying to tell Hunrak, like, hey man, listen, I just worked with her to take that guy down. I'm not working for the Dark Wizard. But Hanrak is not listening. But then you have Ben Grimm begin to get jumped on by a bunch of small clones of Dr. Doom. Now, you have Hanrak kind of like just standing there watching Doom beat down on Ben Grimm. But you then have Tariana get back up and demand they actually help out Ben Grimm. Now, Hanrak, he believes that Tariana is also under the spell of the Dark Wizard, Dr. Doom. But she's all like, no, that man helped me bring down the bigger version of the Dark Wizard. He's on our side. What don't you understand? And so she has to use her fighting skills to take him down to help out Ben Grimm. And she throws her weapon right at one of the Doom's chest, getting rid of all the clones in a matter of seconds. And so the battle is over once again. Now Henrak apparently had just collapsed once again. And so our hero's goal is to take him back to the home of Tariana and Henrak, back to their village. Now for Tariana, she's very worried that Henrak might be very upset about the idea of losing to a woman, but also not being able to bring down the Dark Wizard like Ben Grimm did earlier. Again, talking about Dr. Doom. But while you have Ben, Tariana, and Hanrak walk over to the village for Tariana and Hanrak, you have been kind of wondering, how in the world was Doom back there? Because again, Doom was dead back on Earth, and Doom disappeared at the end of Secret Wars. And so for Ben, he's kind of like, what in the world is going on with Battle World? But either way, once they do arrive back to the village, Ben is very surprised in what he is seeing. Because right now, he's seeing Doomstat, the main city of Latveria, the home of Dr. Doom, but back on Earth. But on top of that, the castle that belonged to Doom is also there as well. And so for Ben, he's kind of wondering, what in the world is going on? Was this actual city taken away from Earth as well? Or is this a copy of Doomstat back on Earth? What is really going on Battle World? Now for Ben Grimm, he's kind of wondering, is this actually a copy of Doomstat? Because he's been there so many times over the years in Marvel Comics. And so when he looks around this area, each part of this Doomstat copy looks exactly the same of Doomstat back on Earth. And so for Ben, he kind of believes that this could actually be Doomstat, but at the same time, the people are acting different. The people are dressed different than the people back on Earth when it comes to Doomstat back on Earth. And so for Ben, he's kind of wondering what in the world is going on here. Now, for Tariana, she does take Ben over to see the leader of this tribe, and his name is Tamar. Now for Tamar, he kind of realized that Hanrak is very upset, and we already know why, because he feels like a failure because he was not able to take down the Great Wizard. He also lost to Tariana earlier, but also you have Tariana going out of her way to give high praise to Ben for being able to take down the Great Wizard, and she's telling Tamar everything he did in that battle. Now other warriors in the area, they overhear this conversation, and they cannot believe an outsider was actually able to take take down the Great Wizard. Now, let's not forget what I said earlier. You see, to these people, there's nothing outside the mountains. Their whole entire world takes place inside the mountains, and that is it. But for Ben, he's all like, that's not possible because I came from outside the mountains into your area, into your village. But either way, they kind of want to know more about Ben, but Ben also has a lot of questions about this tribe and also this area, and also seeing a copy of Doomstat in this area of Battle World. And so you have Tamar begin to tell a story to Ben Grimm about the origin of this place. And we do learn it actually started with a great war between two powerful groups who were using magic, good and evil. There was one group called the Coritheril, and I really hope I pronounced that correctly, and the other one's called the Starnaris. Now, the Starnaris group were actually the evil ones. And so you have the Coritherils, the Coritheril. And so you have Tamar begin to tell us the actual origin of this area. And he tells us that many years ago, there was a great war between two different magic user groups. The first were called the Coritherils, and they were the good guys. And the other group, well, they were called the Starnaris, and they were the evil group. But either way, the war went on for many years. But you had the Coritherils being able to actually win the war. But after doing that, they say, you know what? Let's use our magic to bless the land of this area and build homes for people to actually live in. And after doing that, and you didn't have more and more people begin to arrive in this village, you didn't have the Coritherils use their magic to build a castle to say this area is going to be protected by us. Make sure the Starnarians can never come back and do any harm to you people at all. But then word got out very quickly about the idea that there is a powerful wizard nearby. And of course, they were talking about Dr. Doom. And so you had this village begin to send out different warriors to hopefully take out this powerful wizard. The problem was every single warrior failed. Some never came back. The ones who did, it seemed like they had their life force drained out of them completely. And that is the complete origin of this area. But after hearing the story, you have Tamar being able to give Ben a room for the night to stay in. Now for Ben, he begins to kind of think about Tariana because he realized that she was very impressed in the idea that he could change form so easily, but also because he was able to take down the Great Wizard by himself, Dr. Doom. But he's kind of wondering, would she still think of him as a great warrior if he tells her that he actually hates his rocky form, his Thane form? But while he's thinking that, she does walk into the room because she realized that Ben Grimm is hiding something about her, but also this area. Because apparently after hearing that story, Ben cannot truly believe that this area all began because of one great war. To Ben, there's more to the story. And so she begins to ask him different questions about his past, but also what he's actually thinking about this area. And he does talk to her. But the following morning, you have Ben and Tariana walking around the village. Now for Ben, he wants to know what is actually inside the castle. Now for Tariana, she tells him nobody is allowed to go inside there. But for Ben, he's not trying to listen at all. He wants to know what's going on inside the actual castle. And so he begins to walk towards it. But then he just disappears just like that. Now for Tariana, we do learn that her father did the same thing as well, and he also disappeared. And she wants to know if Ben is okay, but also what could possibly be inside the castle. And so she walks towards the castle, and she also disappears. Now, you have Hanrak nearby, and he sees Tariana and Ben go into the castle, and he's still very upset about the idea that now he has been painted as a coward in his village. And so he now wants to show that he's not a coward at all. And so he also walks towards the castle, and he also disappears as well. But while you have Ben being able to enter the castle, he realized that the entire place has been completely abandoned for many years. Like, no one has been inside this place in many, many years. Either way, he still believes there's something going on inside this castle. And so he goes deeper into the actual place. Now, let's not forget that Tariana, she did follow Ben inside the castle, but she was just a tad bit too late. So by the time she got inside, Ben had already moved on. Now, Tariana, she also realized that this place has been abandoned for many years. But while she's trying to get a look around, that is when somebody grabs her from behind. Now, for Ben, he does continue on deeper into the castle, but he realized closer and closer he gets to the actual center of the castle, the harder it gets for him to breathe, which tells him that he must be getting close to something. Now, we do learn who actually had grabbed Tariana. It was Hanrak. And this is Hanrak really showing us that he's very upset in the idea that he's no longer the main choice as a lover for Tariana, that she had officially moved on to Ben Grimm because he's now the greatest warrior in their village. And he gets very upset by this. But we jump over to Ben Grimm. And when we do, we see Ben Grimm getting closer and closer to the actual center of the castle. Except, again, it's getting harder and harder for him to breathe. But then out of nowhere, he began to see all these different kinds of creatures. Now, these creatures are kind of weighing him down because, again, they're making it hard for him to breathe. And Ben realized the only way he'll be able to push through this is to go ahead and change into his Sting form once again, which he actually does, so that he's able to fight on. Except when he walks into the next room, he finds Dr. Doom. Except Dr. Doom is actually a hologram, because when you have Ben go to punch Doom, he goes straight through Doom into a machine. And once he does hit the machine, everything explodes around him. But then you have Ben realize that everything around him is completely gone. And I mean everything around him is completely gone. You have Ben realize the castle is gone. The village is gone. The people who lived in that village is also gone. Heck, even Hanrak is gone as well. The only two people left right now is Ben Grimm and Tariana. Now, you have Ben tell her that basically everything was fake, all because of Dr. Doom. You see, back in Secret Wars, before Doom was defeated, he left behind a backup plan. This projector that was able to dive deep into the mind of Dr. Doom to kind of show the world what he sees the world as, how he looks at the world, or how he looks at Doomstat back at home. And so all those different people we saw earlier is how Doom sees the world around him back on Earth, back in Doomstat. But the question is right now, how is Tariana still around? Now remember, Battleworld was made by the Beyonder, and so Battleworld is just one big huge mystery. And so for Ben, he believes because he wants Tariana around so much, because he cares for her, because he likes her so much, that Battleworld kind of said, fine, if you want her around, we'll keep her around for you. And so technically she's only here because Ben wants her here. And that's really it. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So what's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the Thing Space Ranger story arc. Let me explain. So back in the 1980s, when it came to Marvel Comics, they got really popular. And with them getting really popular, they began to give all their different characters their own kind of books. For example, The Thing. Now, he had his own ongoing series, but by issue number 11, you had Marvel realize that they wanted to do something different different with the character. So when it came to the original Secret Wars, at the end of that story arc, you had Ben Grimm realize that he now had the ability to turn back into his regular human form. But here's the catch though, he could only do it on Battle World. And so because of that, he said, you know what, I want to go ahead and stay on Battle World to kind of figure out things for my own personal life, but also to enjoy the idea of being able to, turn back into a regular human. And so for Marvel, they turn this idea into a 12-part story arc. Now, we already covered the first 3 chapters, and now it's time for us to cover the next 3 chapters of this story arc. Now there is another character we have to talk about, and that would be Tariana. Now Tariana is a character we saw in our last video. Let me explain. So when it came to Ben Grimm, he was able to find this small village in the middle of Battle World, except this village was put there by, well, Dr. Doom. You see, when it came to the original Secret Wars, you had Dr. Doom being able to walk away and set up a projector that had projected an exact copy of Doomstadt, a big city back in Latveria, back on Earth. Now, when it came to Ben Grimm, when he found this exact copy of Doomstadt, he actually believed it was the real Doomstadt, not realizing it was just a projection. Either way, when he did go inside the actual area, well, we kind of find out the people there were kind of like Vikings, just being great warriors trying to achieve greatness. But either way, once you have Ben Grimm being able to go inside Doom Castle, he kind of find out that it was Dr. Doom who had made this village by using some kind of projector. Now, Ben Grimm was able to get rid of that projector, but the big problem was after doing that, the entire village disappeared, and all the people who had lived in that village except for Tariana. Now, for Ben Grimm, he believes the only reason why she's still here because his connection to Battleworld, but also because Battleworld is connected to his mind. And Battleworld knows that Ben Grimm really wants her around. And the reason why? Because he has fallen in love with her. And so getting into today's video, we actually pick up with Ben Grimm and also Tariana being able to find a random spaceship just laying out in the middle of Battleworld. Now for Ben Grimm, this is great because we have to remember that Ben Grimm used to be a pilot back in the day. So being able to see a spaceship just laying out in the middle of Battleworld, for Ben Grimm, this is great because now he might have the ability to actually fly it. Now, Ben Grimm does realize that, well, the spaceship does look pretty damaged, like it was left behind many, many years ago. But for Ben Grimm, it's still a cool idea to try to actually, fly it. But then out of nowhere, you have Ben and Tariana being attacked by a random group of spaceships flying in the air. Now, luckily for Ben and Tariana, they were able to hide in the one they found earlier. But the problem is, Ben wants to use that spaceship as a way to follow that group or to at least hit that group back for attacking them. But the problem is, Ben has no idea how to fly the thing. But then you have Ben kind of realize that if he is able to turn back into his regular human form, he might know of a way to actually fly it and then use it to follow that group. And so you have Ben turn back into a regular human. And once he does that, apparently he now knows how to fly this thing. But here's the big problem though. You see, this is an alien spaceship. For Ben to be able to just easily figure out is very confusing. And for Ben, he kind of wants to know how in the world was he able to figure things out. But while you have Ben trying to follow that group, he sees that same group now attacking another group of people who are just on the ground minding their business. Now for Ben, that is not okay, because now the first group is attacking a group of innocent people. And so you have Ben going out of his way to protect those people. But it's also kind of reminding us that how great of a pilot Ben was before he became a member of the Fantastic Four. Either way, you do have Ben being able to take out that group that was attacking the innocent group. And once he does that, he lands a spaceship to talk to the innocent people. Now, once you have been being able to sit down with this group, we do learn that they are an alien race called the Turek. Now, the other group we saw earlier, the ones who attacked them, well, they're a race called the Seal Beings. Now, apparently, these two races have been at war against each other for many, many years. The problem is, though, neither group does remember why they're at war against each other, because this war has been lasting for hundreds of years. Now, here's the problem though. You see, for Ben, that makes no sense because Battle World was only created about 2 weeks prior from this point in Marvel's timeline. So how in the world can these two races be at war against each other when this world was only created about 2 weeks ago? Now, we also learned that apparently the Tureks are no longer trying to fight back against the Seal Beings. And the reason why? Because they lost the willpower to fight back. Because they don't know what's the point of their war. But the problem is the Seal Beings are attacking them at least twice a month, killing off their people slowly. And for Ben, that is not okay at all, because sooner or later, this race right here is going to be wiped out completely. So you have Ben say, you know what? How about this? I'm going to teach you guys how to fight back. I'm going to help you guys regain your willpower to fight back so that you guys do not get completely wiped out. And just like that, they agree. And so you have Ben now being a leader. Now for Ben, this is huge because by this point in Marvel Comics, he was never the leader of a group. The Fantastic Four had Reed. And besides that, it was only Reed. And so for Ben, it's like, okay, this is my time to shine, to show everyone that I do have the ability to actually lead a group of people. Now, some time has passed by, and we do see that Ben was able to get this group back in shape, or what he believes is back in shape, because now he believes they should be ready to fight against the Seal Beings. But the problem is, the Seal Beings do arrive, and we do get another battle between these two groups. But the problem is, the Seal Beings are able to win easily over the Turek and Ben. And for Ben, that is a huge problem because this man had built up so many plans that he believed that could most likely help them win the next battle against the Seal Beings. But now all his plans had officially failed. And for Ben, he kind of feels like he's doing a horrible job as a leader. Now, at the tail end of this battle, you did have a Turek say, you know what, Ben, we're done trying to fight back. Unfortunately, we're no longer fighters. We lost that battle very easily. And so that is another reason why Ben feels like he's not really good at being a leader. But after you have been realized that maybe he was not made to be a leader, you then have been realized that, oh, he's the muscle of the group. And so you have been going out of his way to use his skills as a pilot to take down all the other jets that belong to the Seal Beings. Now, after doing that, you then have Ben and Tariana say goodbye to the Turek, saying like, listen, I realized that I was not made to be a leader. I was made to be the muscle you use to handle a certain kind of problem. But either way, you do have Ben and also Tariana leave for their next adventure. But now we enter the next chapter of this story arc where we do pick up with Ben and also Tariana continuing their adventure around Battle World. But while doing that, you did have Ben begin to lose control of the actual spaceship. It's no longer trying to follow any of the orders that he is giving it. And so now you had a spaceship just flying all over the place. Now you didn't have Ben see a nearby city. And so for Ben and also Tariana, they're going to have to do a hard landing to land in that city to hopefully find somebody who could fix the ship, but also gather information about this area. And so you do have Ben and Tariana have a very hard landing in this new town. Now, unfortunately for Ben, he does have a minor car accident or a spaceship accident to be more exact, because he does crash the spaceship right into the back of another spaceship. Now, the owner of the other one is not around, and to Ben, it's not a big deal because the other spaceship barely has a scratch on it. And so you have been saying, you know what, let's go ahead and move on, see if we are able to find anybody who can most likely help us, but also gather information about this area as well. And the best place to do that is to go to the town bar. Now, once you have Ben and Tariana being able to walk into the bar, they did kind of realize that every single person in that bar, they kind of look a tad bit rough looking around the edges. So for Ben, they have to be on their guard because they realize that they could easily set anybody off in the bar and possibly get into a bar fight. Now, this section is also kind of giving us another example that Ben really does love Tariana a lot, to the point where it kind of seems like he wants to stay on Battle World so that he'll be able to be with her and possibly, marry her. Either way, you did have our two characters be confronted by another character in the bar, and that would be Gruel. Now, Gruel is just a random person in the bar, but he saw Tariana and found her very attractive, and he wanted to get with her. Now, Ben Grimm does not like the idea of anybody trying to get with his lady. Now, Gruel does punch Ben and thinking that he took Ben down. But then you have Ben get right back up and he punched Gruel in the face into the wall and kind of says, okay, you know what? Bar fight is over. Ben wins. And matter of fact, Ben and also Tariana are going to leave. But while they are leaving, they see that a group of people are actually watching them. Now, for Gruel, he hates the idea that he had just lost to Ben Grimm, and so because of that, he goes out of his way to grab a cannon called the Tentorian PZ Lanta, and he wants to use the cannon on Ben Grimm. And we hear the cannon is so powerful, it can instantly kill anybody in its path. Now, with that being said though, while you have Ben and Tariana walking around, they don't realize they're being tailed by Gruel, and you have Gruel go ahead and take the shot. Except for Ben, he's lucky that he found a wallet on the ground, because when he does see the wallet, he bends over and Gruel's shot completely misses. Now, Ben does not realize that he was just shot at, because right now he's trying to get that wallet, and apparently the wallet is tied to a string and being pulled to a different part of the city. Now, Tariana, she saw what happened and she can't believe what just happened, that her boyfriend here almost just got killed. But Ben, he's all like, man, I'm trying to get this wallet. I'm trying to get that money in that wallet. And Gruel, he's just ticked off that he just missed. But you do have Tariana tell Ben, like, hey, you almost got killed. Like, you completely missed what almost happened to you. Now, for Ben, he believes it's some kind of joke. But for Tariana, that's no joke at all. Now, you have the two characters walking around, but then out of nowhere, you have our mysterious group of people begin to throw eggs at Ben. Now, Ben does get very upset, but then you have Gruel try something else as a way to kill off Ben. You see, he decides to use the cannon, shoot up cannonballs, and have the cannonballs go to the exact location of where Ben is at. And so while you have Ben and Tariana talking to one another, well, out of nowhere, all of these cannonballs begin to come at Ben Grimm. Now, luckily, Ben was able to change into his thing form to take the hit. But after doing that, he realized who has been trying to kill him off. It's Gruel. And for Ben, that's not okay at all. So now it's time for Ben to have some clobbering time with Gruel's face. Now, once you have Ben being able to catch up to Gruel, you also have Tariana being able to find the group of people who have been messing with them while Ben and her have been inside the city. Now, we do learn that this group of people are very angry with Ben Grimm, and here's the reason why. Because remember, in the earlier part of this chapter, Ben had to do a hard crash landing, but when he did that, he rear-ended another spaceship. That other spaceship belonged to, well, these group of people. And so they are very upset with Ben Grimm, like, you you had scratched our vehicle, and that was not okay at all. So we decided to get payback on you. Now, they do help Ben out saying, listen, the cannon that Gruul is using, its main goal is to seek out powerful people. If you are able to grab it and think of someone powerful than you, then the cannon will teleport away over to that person. And so you have been grab the cannon and think of Galactus. And just like that, the cannon is gone. It is instantly teleported over to Galactus. Now, with that being said, you have been and Tariana decide that, you know what, they just need to leave the city, and they walk out. Now, there is a special reason why we have this whole chapter here for. Let me explain. You see, those small creatures are actually analogs for another group of characters, but back on Earth, better called the Yancey Street Gang. You see, over the years in Marvel Comics, we have learned that Ben Grimm is from Yancey Street, a street in New York. Now, with that being said, over the years, you had the gang kind of mess with things in different kinds of ways. But over the years, you have been in the gang being able to build a bond with one another. And so these small creatures are analogs for that gang back on Earth. Now, we have not reached a point where this whole entire story arc comes together, because that comes at the very end of the story arc, part 12 of 12. But once we do get there, everything will make sense of what in the world is going on in this story arc. But either way, you do have Ben and Tariana leave to continue on their next adventure. But getting into the final chapter for today's video, we do pick up with Ben Grimm and Tariana climbing a mountain. Now, while they are climbing this mountain, you didn't have Ben Grimm kind of tell us that he's once again gaining more feelings for Tariana, that he really does want to be with her. Now, with that being said, you do have the two characters being able to make it to the top of the mountain. And when they do, well, it does seem like they're going to have some alone time being able to make out with one another. But the problem is, the ground opens up, grabs Ben Grimm, he falls in the crack, and then you have the ground close up. And now Ben is lost inside this mountain, while you have Tariana on the top of the mountain wondering how in the world is she going to be able to get back to Ben Grimm. Now, you do have Ben and also Tariana continue to walk around the mountain, really inside and outside the mountain. For Ben, inside, her outside. Either way, you have Ben trying his best to find a tunnel that can lead outside the mountain, while you have Tariana trying her best to find a way inside the mountain. Now, you have both our characters realize that it seems that the world is trying to keep them apart. Every single time it seems like these two characters are going to be able to establish some kind of relationship, well, then something happens to keep them apart, or something happens to keep them busy. Like right now, the whole idea of the mountain basically eating Ben Grimm. Now, you have Ben kind of think about the idea of going back home to Earth, because let's not forget that Reed Richards gave Ben a device that can teleport Ben back home to Earth. But Ben's not ready to go yet. One, he loves the idea of having the ability to turn back to normal. And two, Tariana, the woman he loves. Either way, you have our two heroes continue on to hopefully find a way to get back to one another. Now, things get even crazier for our heroes. You see, you have Ben being able to continue on one tunnel. But when he does that, he is confronted by other creatures that look just like him, like the Thing, and you have been wondering what in the world is going on here. But you do have these creatures grab in and they go deeper into the tunnels. Now, for Tariana, she does find a way into the actual mountain, except the tunnel she finds, well, inside of it is a bunch of skeletons. And she's kind of wondering what in the world is going on inside this mountain. But then the skeletons come to life and they begin to attack her. But now we jump back over to Ben Grimm. Now you have Ben Grimm now being held as a prisoner by all these creatures, all these things. Now with that being said though, with him being a prisoner, he also realized that he is unable to change his form back into his thing form to kind of show them that he's one of them. Because right now they believe that he is trespassing in their territory and they want to get rid of him. Now with him being their prisoner, they begin to search him. And when they do, they find the device he needs to get back home. The same one Reed gave him. And one of them runs off with it. Now, Ben is able to break away. And he is able to kind of chase down that one creature. But the other ones, the other things, they're also chasing him down as well. And so for Ben, he realized even if he's able to catch that one that has his way home back to Earth, the other ones are gonna catch up and they're gonna beat him down. And so Ben has no choice but to go ahead and let that one get away, but to also hide from the others. Now, he does find a different tunnel to take, and he does take that tunnel. The problem is it leads into another thing, except this one seems a whole lot older and a whole lot wiser. Now we do learn the name of this thing, and her name is Laura Gudma. Now Laura Gudma is going to help out Ben here by saying, hey listen, I'm going to hide you in my home right now. So when the other things come by looking for you, they can't find you. But on top of that, I'm going to tell you how to get the heck out of here as well. Now we also see that when she looks at Ben, she kind of realized that he has a very soft soul, a gentle soul, but also she feels like he's hiding something, another side to him. Either way, you do have Laura being able to tell Ben how the heck get out of here by saying go back to the square where you came from, but take this path right here, and then most likely you'll be able to get out of these tunnels. Now right after you have Ben leave her home, we see her change form and we see her begin to laugh very evil like, very bad guy like. So now we know that really her name is not Laura Gudma, she's somebody else. The question is, who is she? Now you do have Ben trying his best to sneak out of the tunnels the same way that Laura Gudman told him to go. But the problem is, while trying to sneak out, you have Ben remember that, well, those creatures are still holding on to his device, the same one he needs to use to get back home to Earth. And so Ben has no choice but to go ahead and go back into their tunnels. But the problem is, well, an earthquake has started inside the actual mountain, and now those caves are going to be caved in very soon. Now Ben realized that it's one person causing this earthquake, our mysterious character. But when you have Ben try to grab that character, well, he's able to vanish in a matter of seconds, just gone in the wind, and Ben is unable to, well, stop him. Now, we do see our mysterious character being able to teleport over to where Tariana is at, and he grabs her and disappears. Now, Ben has no idea that she has just been grabbed, but now we know that currently she is that guy's hostage. Now, because Ben was trying to save these creatures from this earthquake, they realize that Ben is actually a good person, so they hand over his device. And you have Ben now being able to leave, except when he goes down a particular tunnel, well, he finds the sword of Tariana. And now he realized that most likely she has been grabbed. And now his next goal is to find her. But we'll see what happens in our next video. So this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So what's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the Space Ranger story arc that took place right after the original Secret Wars. You see, back in 1984, we had the big good old Marvel event known as Secret Wars, and a lot of things came out of that event. And one of those things was the idea of Ben Grimm staying behind on Battleworld. You see, around the same time we got Secret Wars, Ben Grimm, the Thing, had his own comic book series away from the Fantastic Four. And so when it came to Marvel, they realized that, you know what? We could tell a whole story arc of Ben Grimm staying behind on Battleworld because he gained the ability to turn back into a regular human being. And that was really big for that character, somebody who kind of did hate the idea of the way he looked. And so once he was able to regain that ability to look human again, he said, hey guys, I want to stay behind on Battleworld to figure out why in the world this planet gives me that ability. But once I have things figured out, I'll then come back to Earth. And Reed Richards gave him a device that will bring him back to Earth when he's ready to come back to Earth. Now, in the first 6 chapters of this story arc, we have seen Ben Grimm go through a lot of different things on Battleworld. Now remember, Battleworld was created by the Beyonder. When it came to the Beyonder, he was able to make Battleworld by taking different pieces of different planets across the universe to make Battleworld as one big whole planet. But either way, when it came to Ben Grimm, while walking around Battleworld, he had went on a lot of different adventures, but also he met a woman he truly cared for, a woman known as Tariana. You see, when it came to Ben Grimm, he found this village in the middle of Battleworld. The problem was, this village looked exactly like Doomstadt, the capital city of Latveria, the country that is technically ruled by Dr. Doom back on Earth. And so for Ben, he was very confused on how in the world Doomstadt's here on Battleworld at the moment, or an exact copy. Now, when he walked around, he realized that the people were kind of dressed different, kind of dressed like old great warriors. Either way, when it came to Ben, he entered the Castle of Doom to get a better idea of what was going on. And when he did, he found a projector. Now, this projector was left behind by Dr. Doom in the middle of Secret Wars. It was able to project this village and the mountains around the village. And so you have Ben go ahead and get rid of the projector. And when he did, the entire village disappeared. The mountain that has surrounded the village had also disappeared. The people inside the village had also disappeared, except one person, Tariana, a lady he met in the earlier chapters who was actually from that village. But the question was then, how in the world is she still around, but everyone else is gone? And for Ben, apparently he said, maybe my mind is connected to the world here, Battleworld. And because I wanted you so badly here, Battleworld made sure to keep you alive. Because Ben Grimm is really in love with Tariana. Now, with all that being said though, we still have no actual idea of why Battleworld is acting this way and allowing Ben Grimm to keep Tariana around. Now, unfortunately, we saw Ben and also Tariana at the end of our last video get separated from one another. And once Ben was able to get close to her again, or he believed he was going to, he comes to find out that she was kidnapped. Now, we do know that she was kidnapped by some kind of wizard. And so now it's up to Ben to figure out where in the world Tariana was actually taken to. And so as we dive into the opening pages of today's story, we do see Ben Grimm being very upset about the idea that Tariana has been kidnapped. Now, with her being kidnapped, he's kind of like, you know what? Maybe I should just go ahead and give up, because this is a man who's been on Battleworld since the original Secret Wars. And this man has gone through a lot since the opening pages of that story arc. And so for Ben, he's kind of like, I'm done with being here on Battleworld. I think it's best for me to just go ahead and go back to Earth to be with Alicia Masters. But the problem is, he knows that if he does leave, he has no idea if Tariana will actually be okay. And so for Ben, he kind of wants to stay here to make sure that Tariana will actually be okay. He wants to go ahead and save her. But then he's confronted by the wizard, the same one we saw in our last video. Now, for the wizard, he does tell Ben Grimm like, hey, I was the one who kidnapped Tariana. And if you want to get her back, well, you have to find us. Now, Ben Grimm, he's down with that idea. But then you have the wizard tell Ben Grimm, also, if you had just left for Earth and did not come back, I would have went ahead and released Tariana unharmed. But because you had decided to stay here on Battleworld, I had decided to go ahead and keep a hold on her. So until you were able to find us, she's going to stay with me. And so for Ben Grimm, he's very upset because now he realized that his decision to stay here on Battleworld is the reason why the wizard is going to continue to hold on to Tariana. And so for Ben, he's very upset about this fact. And so you have Ben begin to throw a tantrum. Now, by the time he's done with his tantrum, he's then confronted by another character. That is when we meet the Reckoner. Now, the Reckoner does work for the wizard, and we do kind of find out that apparently the Reckoner is very upset with Ben. And the reason why, because he tells Ben the only reason why you're on Battleworld is because you are trying to escape from all of your problems back on Earth. For example, Alicia Masters. Because remember, her and Ben, they were dating. They were in love. But the problem was, though, Alicia was blind and she had no powers. And the reason why that's so important because Ben felt like her life was always in danger because she was always around him. And so it's the Reckoner saying the only reason why you're here on Battleworld is because of you're trying to find a new love. Somebody that you can actually be around with and they can protect themselves. Tariana. Now for Ben Grimm, he's getting tired of hearing that from the Reckoner. But you didn't have the Reckoner being able to hit Ben Grimm with a beam of light right into his eyes. Now for Ben Grimm, he knows that he just can't sit there and be worried about the idea of being blind because he's still fighting against the Reckoner. And so you have Ben charged right at the Reckoner. Now, Ben was able to run over him and Ben was able to find him because the Reckoner was talking, using his voice to find the target. But once you have Ben run over the Reckoner, he continued to charge down straight path into a tunnel. And then you have Ben being able to dig his way out of that tunnel back to the surface. Now after that, you have Ben realize that he is alone again. But you also have Ben wondering if he turns back into his regular human form, will he be able to actually see again? And unfortunately, Ben still cannot see even in his regular human form. Now for Ben Grimm, he now understands what it's like to be blind like Alicia Masters, but at the same time, Ben knows that he still cannot give up because if he does give up, the wizard is going to win. The Reckoner is going to win. Tariana's life is in danger right now. And so you have Ben say, you know what? Let me go ahead and continue on. Even though I'm blind, I still have to keep on fighting until I am able to get Tariana back. And so you have Ben pick up a stick and just continue to walk around Battleworld hoping to find Tariana. But because he is blind, he has no idea who or what is around him. And so you do have the wizard appear. And you have the wizard kind of change his voice, I guess, to trick Ben to say, hey, listen, if you're trying to find your missing woman, Tariana, well, just go left. And Ben does go left, except when he does, he ends up in a cactus field. It was basically a trap being done by the wizard. And once you have Ben realize that he had just been played, well, you didn't have Ben be confronted by the Reckoner once again. Except this time, the Reckoner had brought some hounds with him to sick on Ben Grimm. And Ben's kind of like, this day is only getting worse and worse. Now you do have Ben Grimm being able to kind of adapt to the idea of being blind, being able to use the voices of the Reckoner, but also the sounds of the creatures who came with the Reckoner to kind of realize where they're at and how to fight back against them. Now, I'm not saying that he's able to win the battle so easily, but he is able to somewhat hold his own. Now, there is a point where it does seem like the Reckoner is about to defeat the Thing, but then you have Ben being able to do a surprise attack on the Reckoner to get a hold of the mace. The same mace we saw earlier that had blinded Ben Grimm. And so you have Ben being able to grab the mace and once again shoot himself in the eye to return his sight. Now things only get worse because after doing that and being able to bring down the Reckoner, you then have the wizard appear. And you have the wizard say, hey, listen, if you want Tariana so bad, then just look down. And you kind of find out that the entire time Ben Grimm was fighting against the Reckoner, he was actually fighting against Tariana. That the wizard used his illusion magic to kind of make Tariana look like an enemy for Ben Grimm to fight. But in reality, this entire time, he was fighting against the woman he loved. And so as we dive into the next chapter for today's video, we do pick up with Ben Grimm and Tariana not really on speaking terms. And really, a few days have passed by, but it's really more of Ben Grimm feeling really bad about the idea that he actually beat up Tariana. Now, in reality, he did not know, but at the same time, he still feels bad about it. And honestly, he's having a hard time apologizing for what he has done to her. But this also continues the idea that Ben Grimm is kind of hating the idea of being on Battleworld, but he does not want to leave. And the reason why? Because of Tariana. But then in the middle of him kind of think about what's happened in the last chapter, he overhears a bunch of noise where he sees all these flying creatures attacking someone who's on the ground. And so you do have Ben say, you know what? Maybe I should go there and see what in the world is going on. And so once again, we're being introduced to a new kind of creatures who are riding on the back of other kind of creatures of Battleworld. But the ones who are doing the riding, you see, they are attacking an older lady and a baby. Yes, a baby. We're going to see Tariana and Ben Grimm kind of be like, you know, parents. Either way, you do have Ben realize that these other people are trying to attack the old lady and her child. Now, she does tell us that she's trying her best to use magic as a way to protect her and the baby, but like it's not working very well. And so Ben and Tariana have to jump in to actually help her out. Now, with all that being said, you do have Ben realize that if he truly wants to help her out, he has to go into his Thane form to actually do some damage to the flying creatures who are attacking her. But after a few pages, we do see that Ben is able to save her and the baby. Now we do learn that unfortunately the older lady is on the verge of death, but before she does die, she does ask Ben and also Tariana to take the young child over to a city called Muab. And I really hope I pronounced that correctly, but it's really important for the child to get back to his home city. And so you have Ben and Tariana agree to take the child and get the child back to his home city. But after agreeing, the old lady dies and then she completely disappears. And so now we begin the adventure of Ben Grimm and Tariana trying to take care of a child and travel across Battleworld. Now, before she had died, she told Ben it's going to take you like 10 days to actually get over to that city. But for Ben, he does not care. He knows that his goal is to get the child over to his home city. Now for Ben, he knows that if they're going to be able to actually reach the city in like 10 days, they need faster transportation. Then out of nowhere, we see a bunch of unicorns just in the open, in the wild. And so to Ben, he says, you know what? Let me go ahead and see if I am able to grab 2 unicorns that we could ride to get over to that city. Now we also see that Ben gave the young boy a name, Junior, and that's his name for the entire story arc. But when it comes to Ben, he does try his best to get 2 unicorns, but unfortunately he does start a stampede. Now while the stampede is going on, you have Junior fall out of the hands of Tariana and actually rush in to see Ben who's in the middle of the stampede. And you have Tariana and Ben freaking out because they're afraid the young boy is going to die by the hands of the unicorns. And really, one of the unicorns is about to run into Junior, but at the very last second, the unicorn stops right in his tracks. Now, we have no idea why, but with the two unicorns now stopping, it does allow Ben, Junior, and Tariana unicorns to use as a way to travel over to the city. Now, they have no idea that technically the wizard has continued to watch over them from his crystal ball, but you do have Ben and also Tariana kind of realize that the young boy, Junior, is going to be a handful. But at the same time, though, they kind of like the idea of having a child around. So they're going to continue on trying their best to take care of the young boy. And really, we kind of get another example of a boy being a handful when he tries to cross over a chasm by using a log. And of course, we already know that's a bad idea for a young boy to do. So you have Ben and Tariana wondering where the boy is at, and they realize the boy is trying his best to cross over a chasm, and you have Ben just freak out. And luckily, Ben and Tariana were able to get there in time to grab the boy, but it really does show like little man is going to be a handful for them. But we also see Ben kind of loving the idea of having the boy around, and really you have been considering the possibility of keeping the boy and not trying to return the boy back to the city where he belongs. But while you have been thinking that, he's then confronted by the wizard. Now, you have the wizard claim that apparently the young boy is actually his son, but we don't know that yet. But either way, you did have the wizard being able to bring a tree to life. And of course, that tree tries to grab Junior, the young boy. And so you have Ben and Tariana being able to work together to actually defeat the tree. But the problem is Ben had to use his staying form once again to overcome another obstacle. Now, even though he hates that idea, he realized that the good thing he did do it because he was able to save the young boy's life. But now the question is the wizard actually the parent to the young boy? But now we have to jump back over to the Takers. Now, we haven't talked about the Takers since our first video. And really, the Takers are a group of people who, well, you know, take things. Now, they had stolen from Ben Grimm before, but he was able to get back what was stolen from him. Now, the only reason why we do pick up with the Takers is because they are being confronted by a random lady who teleported in their base out of nowhere, and she's looking for the missing child, the child that is currently with Ben Grimm and Tariana. But you have the Takers tell the lady like, hey, they don't know anything about a missing child, and so she leaves. But right now, she kind of feels like giving up. But either way, she does leave to continue her search for the missing child. Now you do have Ben Grimm, Tariana, and also Junior being able to arrive at the city or the outskirts of the city. But the problem is they're then attacked by an army of creatures, flying creatures that are working for the wizard. Now, Ben Grimm is able to change into his thing form, but the problem is you have Tariana and Junior both get grabbed at the same time. And so for Ben, he has to choose who to save the baby or to save the woman he loves. And of course, he saves the child. Now for Ben, he's very upset with what he had to do. And he tells the wizard that he is going to pay for what he has done. But either way, you do have Ben being able to get inside the actual city. But Tariana, she has now been again taken away from Ben Grimm. Now, Ben Grimm is able to actually make it into the actual city, but then he's confronted by that same lady we saw earlier, and we do learn that her name is Mara. Now, for Mara, like I said earlier, she was looking for the missing child, and the reason why, because that child is destined to become the next ruler of this city, of this kingdom. And apparently the wizard was trying his best to keep the child away from becoming the actual next ruler of the city. But now he has returned back home. And so you do have Mara tell all the attackers to flee. And she also makes fun at the wizard as well too. But you didn't have the wizard say, yeah, you know what? I may have lost this battle, but I did defeat Ben Grimm in a different kind of way by, of course, getting his lady once again, Tariana. Now you do have the entire kingdom praise Ben for being a hero, but Ben does not care because right now Ben had just lost the woman he loves once again. And that's the end of the second chapter for this video. And so now we have to dive into the final chapter for today's video, part 9 of this massive story arc where we do see Ben Grimm just walking in a forest. Now, Ben does remember that Reed Richards had told him something very important, and that would be the idea that Battleworld might be connected to Ben's mind, and really other people's minds as well, that their thoughts could possibly affect Battleworld in different kinds of ways. And the reason why I'm bringing that up because you have been currently just walking through a forest, but while doing that he realized the forest does remind him of some old school scary movies that he watched when he was a kid. Now for Ben, he's then confronted by a guy who is currently driving a carriage through the forest. Now that carriage almost ran over Ben, but Ben was able to get out of the way just fast enough. But then you have Ben wondering if he's able to get a ride from this guy in his carriage. Now the guy does look mysterious at first. Matter of fact, we can't see his face, it's in the shadows. But then once we are able to see his actual face, we realize this guy is a corpse, a zombie who's currently driving this carriage. And really his carriage is a coffin. And so you have been freaking out and you have been trying his best to get away from this guy. Now for Ben, he does see a castle nearby, but he has to cross the bridge to be able to make it over to the castle. Now Ben jumps for it and the bridge actually breaks apart. And so it does look like Ben is going to fall to his death. But luckily somebody grabs Ben and pulls him inside the castle to finally give him a moment to breathe because now he's finally safe from that guy in the carriage earlier. Now, once you have Ben being able to get inside the actual castle, he comes to find out the castle belongs to, well, Dracula. It's Dracula on Battleworld. So for Ben, he's kind of wondering, how in the world is this even possible? How in the world is Dracula here on Battleworld? But while you have been inside the actual home of Dracula, he has no idea that once again, he's being watched by the wizard. Now, when it comes to the wizard, he also tells his new prisoner, Tariana, about the woman Ben truly loves, and that would be Alicia Masters. Now remember, Tariana and Ben, they're not official. They always try to make it official, but something always happened to keep the two characters apart from one another. And so right now she's learning about the idea that Ben might have another woman he loves back on Earth. But also he reminds Tariana that her village was just imaginary. It wasn't real at all. Now for her, she still believes it was real, even though we as the reader saw that it was not real at all. But either way, you do have the wizard continue to watch over Ben. Now we jump back over to Ben Grimm, and you have Ben Grimm realize that Dracula has been gone for a while now. Like, they were supposed to have dinner, but Dracula has not returned. With all that being said, you now have been kind of wondering if he should stay in Battleworld, because right now you're kind of wondering if he should go ahead and go back to Earth. But at the same time, remembers that it is Battleworld that gives him the ability to actually change back into his regular human form. Now, while you have been thinking, he does change into the form of the Thing. And that is actually a huge problem, because you didn't have Dracula believe that Ben Grimm was actually a monster who was able to trick his way into the actual castle. Dracula wanted no actual monsters inside his castle, but now supposedly he has one. And so you do have the two characters being able to actually go back and forth with their battle. And really, their battle goes all over the castle. But unfortunately, Ben Grimm has no choice but to defend himself. And the only way to do that is by grabbing a huge splinter and stabbing it right in the heart of Dracula. And with that happening, boom, Dracula is officially dead. And Ben Grimm's kind of like, listen, I know I just killed somebody, but honestly, I had no choice there. Now, for Ben Grimm, he does realize that now he's actually in the dungeon of the castle. But the problem is, the dungeon has a very Egyptian theme. And for Ben's kind of wondering, why in the world would Dracula have a dungeon set in this kind of theme? But you do have Ben being able to walk around. But while doing that, you didn't have Ben be confronted by a mummy. Now, when it comes to Ben, he's kind of surprised how powerful the mummy truly is, but also that the mummy can shoot eye beams out of its, well, I guess, eyes. Either way, you do have Ben being able to fight back against the mummy and actually defeat it. But then you have Ben be confronted by the wizard once again. Now, here's the thing. Ben is getting tired of this wizard and wants to know who this guy actually is. And you have the wizard say, just know that I'm somebody who truly hates you a lot. Like, that right there should kind of give you an idea in the possibility of who I could be. But then you have the wizard disappear. And then you have Ben be confronted by, well, Frankenstein. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later. What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage. Really, we're going to wrap up our coverage over the Thing Space Ranger story arc. Let me explain, just in case you're new to my channel. You see, back in 1983, when it came to Marvel Comics, they gave the Thing, one of the members of the Fantastic Four, his own solo book. Now, his book did run for a very short period of time, like 28 issues, possibly 30. But 12 of those issues were technically used to tell a story arc called the Space Ranger story arc, because it took place right after the whole original Secret Wars story arc. We had our heroes fighting against a group of bad guys on Battle World. Now remember, when it comes to Battle World, it was technically a patchwork of different pieces of different planets across the universe that was put together by the Beyonder, where you had our heroes fighting against a group of bad guys on Battle World. But once you had the story wrap up, you have Ben Grimm decide to go ahead and stay on Battle World. And the reason why? Because he was able to turn back into his regular human form, something he could not do back on Earth. And so he said, you know what? Let me go ahead and stay here on Battle World to figure out why in the world I am allowed to turn back into a regular human, but also enjoy the idea of not having to be a rock monster. Now, something we have to remember when it comes to the whole idea of Ben Grimm being on Battle World is that apparently he has been going through a lot of weird events. Not apparently, like, they have been happening. We've been seeing it. But the problem is Ben Grimm has no idea why all these different things are happening to him. So for example, in the last few chapters that we had covered, well, he has been attacked by someone known as the Wizard. Now, we have no idea who the Wizard is, but this video here is finally going to tell us who is the Wizard who has been trying to come after Ben Grimm. And apparently the Wizard, he says he knows Ben Grimm very well. So in this video, we're going to learn who is this actual person. Now, there is one more character we have to talk about, and that would be Tariana. Now, remember, Tariana was found by Ben Grimm when he was going around Battle World, and really, he found her nearby a small village, a village that looked very similar to Doomstadt, a major city in Latveria back on Earth. And we had learned in that chapter that basically Dr. Doom had left behind some kind of projector in the middle of Battle World. So when Ben Grimm found the actual Doomstadt city, well, it wasn't actually Doomstadt. It was just a projected image that Dr. Doom was able to produce and left behind. And so once you had Ben Grimm being able to get rid of projector, well, the entire village had disappeared, except for Tariana. And the question is right now, why did she stay behind? Now for Ben, he believes because Reed told him that maybe because his mind is somehow affecting Battleworld because he wanted her around so badly, well, she stuck around. But again, the last few chapters of the story arc is going to explain everything for us. Now, the next chapter we have to talk about does not take place in the Thing series. It actually takes place in Fantastic Four issue number 274. Now, for me personally, it kind of felt like this was Marvel trying to help promote the idea that Ben Grimm had his own book, so that more fans can go ahead and buy his book to keep the book going. Because like I said though, when it came to Ben Grimm, he had his own series, but it didn't last that long. Matter of fact, it only lasted for like 30 issues maybe. And so by the end of the story arc, they were hitting issue number 22. Now, with all that being said, we actually do pick up at the home of Reed and Susan Richards. You see, when it came to Reed and Susan Richards, around this time in Marvel Comics, they wanted to live a somewhat normal life, kind of move away from the idea of being the Fantastic Four, of being heroes. And so you have the two characters being able to buy a home in Bellport, Connecticut. Now, here's the thing, when they bought the home, they made sure that no one would find out that they were actually the Richards, because again, the Fantastic Four was a very well-known group of heroes. And so you had our heroes say, you know what, let's give ourselves fake names, the Benjamins. But here comes the problem though. They have a nosy neighbor. And so every once in a while, she's trying her best to get enough proof to prove that there's something going on with the Benjamins, the Richards. And so when you have She-Hulk being there and being able to change into her Hulk form to get an earring for Susan that fell underneath the fridge, well, their nosy neighbor saw it and she begins to freak out. And she runs back home to call somebody to help her deal with this situation. She has no idea her neighbors, the Benjamins, are actually the Richards. Now, something else I do want to talk about is the whole idea that, well, Susan and Reed had just lost a baby. See, when it came to Reed and Sue, we already know that they have two kids. Of course, Franklin and Valeria. Now, unfortunately, Valeria was not conceived in a normal way like other kids are in Marvel Comics. Really, I guess some kids, because some kids are not conceived in a normal way in Marvel Comics. But for Valeria, she died actually. For Susan and Reed, they had unfortunately had to lose the baby. Now, we all know that down the road, thanks to Dr. Doom, he was able to bring her back to life. But around this time, no, there was no Valeria. She had officially died when Susan was still pregnant with her. And so when you have Sue walk into the room that was going to be Valeria's room, it hit Susan really hard. And unfortunately, she collapsed on the ground, crying. But now we have to jump over to the Baxter building. Now, when we do, we are trying to establish the idea that, well, the Fantastic Four is no longer going to be using the Baxter building as their main base. And the reason why, because none of the members of the current team is actually staying there. Johnny, She-Hulk, Reed, and Sue, they all have different homes in different areas around the world. So it's kind of like, why should we stay here at the Baxter building and use it for our base? And also for Reed, he kind of want to have a bigger lab to be able to do more experiments. And unfortunately, he's not allowed to kick out other tenants in the actual Baxter building. So it's kind of like, hey, if I want to expand my labs, I need a bigger base. But also, what's the big deal of us losing the Baxter building if none of us is actually living here? Now, something else I have to mention is that Johnny Storm is dating Alicia Masters, the girlfriend to Ben Grimm. But here's the catch though. You see, down the road, they're going to retcon and say that this is not Alicia Masters. That matter of fact, this is a scroll that is pretending to be her. And I'm not really going to dive too deep into that, just know that right now it's not Alicia Masters actually cheating on Ben Grimm and getting with Johnny Storm. But for Reed, he's kind of like, it's weird, but Alicia does a great job taming Johnny. But Reed is concerned when Ben comes back, how will Ben feel about the idea of his ex-girlfriend now dating, well, his teammate? But now we can jump back over to Ben Grimm. Now, the last time we saw Ben Grimm, he was actually fighting against Dracula and also fighting against the Mummy. And really, at the end of our last video, he was confronted by Frankenstein. Now, Ben Grimm does remember what Reed had told him, the whole idea that Battleworld could be affected in the way of how you think. And so for Ben Grimm, he kind of feels like the reason why he's being confronted by all these different kinds of monsters is because, well, he had thoughts about these creatures before. Dracula, the Mummy, Frankenstein. Either way, you do have Ben trying his best to fight against a monster, but to only be able to win because, well, someone had knocked out Frankenstein by using a tranquilizer. And really, they used one on Ben Grimm as well too to knock him out. Now, once you have Ben Grimm being able to wake back up, you have Ben Grimm realize that he's now being held in some kind of truck and being transported over to, well, who knows where. But then he's confronted by a character known as Gregor Lupus. Now, Lupus is actually a werewolf, so now we have another creature of the night. Now, with all that being said, you didn't have Ben Grimm find out that they're being technically prisoners for a guy known as the Monster Maker. And the guy who had knocked out Ben Grimm earlier is a guard that works for the Monster Maker. Now, Ben realized that the Monster Maker has no idea that Ben can change forms. And so you have Ben being able to change back into his regular human form. Now, with him doing that, of course, you do have the Monster Maker realize there's something wrong in the back of his truck. And so he tells his guard, hey, let's go check things out. And it does lead into a whole battle scene where you have Ben Grimm fighting against the Monster Maker and his guard, and you have the Monster Maker use the werewolf as a way to fight against Ben Grimm. But after a few pages, you do have Ben being able to defeat the guard, take down the werewolf, and you have Frankenstein kill off the Monster Maker to allow them to finally be free. Now, once you have our heroes realize that they're finally free, you didn't have Ben Grimm say goodbye because, well, he still needs to find Tariana. She was kidnapped in our last video by the wizard, and so he begins to walk away. Except when he turns around and sees Frankenstein and the werewolf, they're no longer there. Kind of like saying they never were in the first place. And so as we jump into The Thing issue number 20, we actually pick up with Tariana. Now, this is Tariana on some kind of stage. Now, for Tariana, it does seem like somebody is trying to mess with her mind. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you have her being attacked by, well, clones of Ben Grimm, but Ben in his Thing form. And so for Tariana, she's kind of wondering why in the world is she being attacked by clones of the Thing. But for right now, she has no choice but to go ahead and defend herself against this clone who's attacking her. But the problem is that when she goes to attack the Thing or the clone of the Thing, when she stabs it, well, Ben Grimm in the real world actually feels it. And we do learn that yes, her mind is being played with by the wizard. We have the wizard being able to hook her mind up to some kind of device. And with this device, well, unfortunately, everything she does in her mind, so fighting against the clones of Ben Grimm, the real Ben Grimm is going to feel it. Now, we already know that this wizard is someone who apparently has a lot of hatred towards Ben Grimm, but also knows a lot about Ben Grimm. Now, for Ben, he does remember the whole idea that somehow his thoughts could possibly affect how Battle World actually works out, meaning that his thoughts can change the appearance or things happening on Battle World. The Beyonder kind of told Reed that, and Reed told, well, Ben that. And so it's Ben kind of wondering the whole idea of Tariana and everything else he's been through on Battle World has all been done because what he's currently thinking about are his past thoughts on different subjects going on in his life. Either way, you have been realized that all the pain he's feeling must come somewhere, but he kind of realized that if he wants to protect himself from the harm of those random attacks, he needs to change into his Ben Grimm form. But the problem is, he's no longer able to actually do it. Now, for Tariana, her mind's still being played with. In matter of fact, we see her being transported over to a different set in her mind. And this time, it's Yancey Street, the home street to Ben Grimm, but back on Earth. Now, for Tariana, she actually been on a different version of Yancey Street on Battle World because Ben Grimm and her had went on a lot of different adventures, and one of those adventures was him kind of thinking about home and actually finding a different version of Yancey Street, but him not realizing it was Yancey Street. Either way, she's currently on Yancey Street in her mind and about to fight against another clone of the Thing. Except she doesn't find any more clones of Ben Grimm. Instead, she finds a younger version of Ben Grimm who's crying over a toy of the Thing that is completely broken. Now, we could technically say that this is Ben Grimm kind of feeling about the idea of being broken inside because of how the form of the Thing had changed his life completely and all the negative things that happened to him because he was the Thing. Either way, you do have Tariana realize that her mind is being played with, and so she is able to break out a machine that the wizard had put her mind inside of. Now, the wizard is very surprised that Tariana was able to break out of his machine so easily, but she tells him the reason why, because how much she loves Ben Grimm. But here's the catch though, you have the wizard say, how can you love a man you barely even know? A man you just barely met. Like, there's no way that you are madly in love with the guy you don't truly know. And matter of fact, let me show you that you don't know what really is going on. And so you have the wizard pull down his mask to reveal who he truly is to her, but not us, the readers. But now for Ben Grimm, we see him trying to get over to where the wizard could possibly be at. Now for Ben, he's also considering the idea of just giving up, going back home to Earth. Let's not forget that when it came to Reed gave Ben a device that he can use to teleport him right back over to Earth when Ben is ready. And so for Ben, it does seem like he is ready, but he's not ready to give up just yet. He wants to save Tariana's life. But then he realized that, Battle World has been affecting me in different kinds of ways, throwing at me all my worst fears. All the worst things I thought about myself have been here in front of me on Battle World. But then he sees the Baxter building. Now, when he does see the Baxter building, he begins to think that really all of this Battle World and what Battle World has done to him is all because of Reed Richards. Because those two guys are best friends and Reed knows everything about Ben. It only makes sense that it would be Reed who's currently messing with Ben. And so you have Ben walking over to the Baxter building demanding to see Reed Richards. But in reality, inside the actual Baxter building, it's not Reed, it's Tariana and the wizard. And the wizard is Ben Grimm himself. Now, as we dive into issue number 21, the next chapter for today's video, I kind of want to focus more on Ben Grimm here for a moment, the evil Ben Grimm. And here's the reason why, because he does explain what's really happening in this story arc. You see, like I said earlier, when it came to Reed told Ben that Battleworld is going to change constantly with Ben's thoughts, because back in Secret Wars, for our heroes and the bad guys, they kind of realized the same thing as well, that their thoughts kind of kept changing the world around them. And so Reed warned Ben, be careful by staying here on Battleworld. Well, you see, Battleworld kind of realized that Ben wanted to turn back into his human form, which it did give to him. But here's the catch though. Battleworld also realized that Ben's having a hard time trying to decide what he actually wants to be. The Thing or be Ben Grimm, the human Ben Grimm. And so while you have Ben going back and forth between the two forms, you have Battleworld go out of its way to create another Ben Grimm. You see, it's Battleworld saying that Ben Grimm has to decide what he wants to do here. Does he want to be the Thing? Does he want to be a human? He has to choose one or the other. He can't have both. And so with that being said, for the evil Ben Grimm, what he wants to do is get rid of our Ben Grimm so that he's able to replace him, but also be the human Ben Grimm. How Ben should always be on Earth, a human. But if this Ben Grimm does die, then that means, well, our Ben Grimm will unfortunately turn back into the Thing. Now, getting back over to our Ben Grimm, he's outside right now. He's still trying to get inside the Baxter building, but the problem is he can't get inside. And the reason why? Because he needs to hit the button, because if you are a resident in the Baxter building, you have to be buzzed in. The doorman has to let you in. And so Ben realized there's no buzzer. And so you have been going out of his way to test his theory, the whole idea that his mind can control how Battleworld works. And so he thinks up a button to buzz himself in, and you have the doorman allow Ben in. But the problem is, if you are a member of the Fantastic Four, you need some kind of special key to get into the top level of the Baxter building, the base of the Fantastic Four. But Ben Grimm, our Ben Grimm, does not have that. And so you have the doorman believe that Ben is actually an imposter, even though it is the real Ben Grimm. Now you do have Ben being able to knock out the doorman, but then he begins to climb up the elevator shaft, hoping to get to the top in time. But he also realized that it would be a whole lot faster if he was, in his Thing form. But currently he cannot change into his Thing form. Now, I want to jump back over to Ben Grimm, the evil Ben Grimm, because we currently see him change into the Thing. Not completely, but he is kind of getting into that form. Now, here is the reason why I kind of want to sit down and talk about this, because he believes that it is Tariana who's somehow able to use her mind kind of change what's happening around her. For example, what's happening to him. But then you have the evil Ben Grimm tell her that she's not even real at all. That matter of fact, she's fake. That Ben Grimm brought her to life. And here is a good reason why. Because of Alicia Masters. So let me explain. When it comes to Ben Grimm was madly in love with Alicia. But like I said earlier, those two characters began to kind of fall apart from one another. The love is still there, but it was not the same as it was at the very beginning of the relationship. And so because of that, you have Ben Grimm saying he loves her, but at the same time, he does not fully love her. It's him trying to move away from her, but he still wants her around. And so because his love for Alicia Masters, it led to Battleworld creating Tariana. And Tariana was something new and fresh to kind of give Ben something to replace Alicia Masters with. And so when it comes to Tariana, she's not real because, again, Battleworld is being changed by the thoughts of Ben Grimm. Now, for Ben Grimm, he does regain the ability to actually, turn into the thing. He does try to climb up the elevator shaft, but then you have the elevator shaft, really the entire building, begin to beat down on him to the point where he does fall straight down to the very bottom of the elevator shaft, which does land him right in front of his evil self, but also Tariana, who still is a prisoner. Now, the opening pages to the final chapter really does establish that what I said earlier is actually true. You know, Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters not really being in love with one another anymore. Like, yes, they love each other, but it's not the true meaning of love. They're kind of falling out of love from one another. And the reason why, because you have Ben Grimm kind of going through this somewhat dream sequence where he's finally back on Earth. He goes to his apartment building. He's right now in his human form. He knocks on the door to see his girlfriend Alicia Masters, to tell her that he's now back into his human form. But she hates the idea that he is human, that she only loved the idea when he was the thing. And so because he has now changed, she can no longer love him. And so they do begin to argue. And once he does wake up, he realizes that he's now in some kind of gladiator arena. Now, this is really a huge moment because Ben Grimm had no idea the entire time the story arc that he was being messed with by, well, his own self. Because Battleworld realized that Ben Grimm had a hard time deciding what he wanted to do or what he wanted to be. Does he want to be Ben Grimm or does he want to be the thing? He had to decide. And so you have Battleworld say, because you're having a hard time deciding what you want to be, I'm going to go ahead and create another Ben Grimm, a human Ben Grimm for you to fight against, to kind of help you decide in what way your life should actually be, or what you should think your life should be. Should you be Ben Grimm? Should you be the thing? And so for the evil Ben Grimm, even though he knows what his purpose was, thanks to Battleworld, he still wants to get rid of our Ben Grimm, to be the only one standing so that he can go back to Earth to be the regular Ben Grimm. But our Ben Grimm realized that most likely at the end of the battle, he's going to lose the ability to turn back into his regular form. And the reason why, because Battleworld is the only place he can actually do it. And Battleworld was the only place that gave him that ability. Now, the ending of the story does kind of wrap up very quickly here because we do get into the final battle between the Ben Grimms. Now, while you have the two Ben Grimms fighting against each other, there was a plot line that I did not really mention. And honestly, I'm not going to sit down and to explain it because it's not really important for the overall story. It's just the idea that Ultron's head was found by a girl we saw in the early parts of our coverage over the Space Ranger story arc. But she lost the head by the Takers. And you had the Takers give the head back over to her. And then she was able to bring Ultron back to life. And then Ultron decided that he's going to lead an army of robots to take over Battleworld. That plot line is not really important at all when it comes to the overall story arc of Space Ranger. Either way, getting back over to Ben Grimm fighting against, well, Ben Grimm, you do have the two characters go back and forth. But the evil Ben Grimm is about to win. And so it does seem like we're about to lose the good old Ben Grimm until you have Tariana being able to grab a blade and stab the evil Ben Grimm in the back. Now, this is very important. And here's the reason why. Because Ben Grimm wanted to get rid of the evil version of himself, the human form of himself. But also when he does that, is Battleworld saying, okay, you know what? I'm done. I helped you decide what you wanted in life. The whole idea that you wanted to be the thing because you technically thought of the idea of getting rid of your human form. And because of that thought, Tariana, who's not real, she was only created because of his thoughts. She said, you know what? I am somewhat being controlled by Ben's thoughts and I have to go ahead and get rid of the evil Ben Grimm. And so when she does that, that basically means that Battleworld is done helping out Ben decide what he wanted to do in life. And so everything around him begins to disappear. And really so does Ultron Army as well. But either way, you do have everything disappear. The evil Ben Grimm, the arena, and also Tariana, because Battleworld is done helping out Ben. And with Battleworld being done, well, Ben has no choice but to go ahead and go back home to Earth. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. It is literally the end of Space Ranger, and you have Ben go back to Earth to continue on to be a hero back on Earth. With that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, see you next time. Later.